everybody. Welcome to the fourth and final workshop of our Spring 2020 Mentor Program. I am so sad that this is our final workshop, but I'm so excited for you all to jump into this final workshop. We've got a lot to cover this evening. We've got an amazing guest speaker for you this evening. I think you're going to really enjoy this. Now, this workshop is all about how to make the most out of that first internship. How do you make the most of that first internship or first job? Maybe you're jumping into a full-time job, you're a senior, you're graduating. Maybe you're hopefully jumping into an internship. Even if you're not jumping into an internship, maybe you're working on a part-time job that you want to make the most out of for the summer. That's okay too. This workshop is all about how can you make the most out of that first opportunity over the summer so that you can really set yourself apart. By the way, if you have a part-time job and you don't have an internship, there are plenty of ways that you can go about setting yourself apart in that part-time job that could lead to internships down the road. Seriously, do not settle and do not sell yourself short for the network that you could create from any particular opportunity. I know that I could tell you that back in the day when I was a server and bartender, I met plenty of people that ultimately opened up doors for opportunities that I ended up taking advantage of later. You never know who you will meet, even in the jobs you think are not your main thing. It's understandable, but leverage it. Don't ever write any potential connection off. So, as you all know, my name's Garrett. I'm the founder of Ambition in Motion. This workshop's going to be about 50 minutes long. Please ask any questions you have. If you have any questions in the comments section, as you all know, I'm going to ask 3 questions during the duration of this workshop. Your job is to answer them within 24 hours of this workshop going live. I don't necessarily know exactly what the questions are going to be. I always prompt them based on our guest speaker. Sometimes I'll slip in an intro question during this segment here. It just depends how I'm feeling for the day. So I'm so excited for you all to jump in, learn from our guest this evening. I'm so excited to learn your answers to the questions that we ask you, and I'm so excited to engage with you all. Now, I really want to set the expectations. As you all know, you're not going to get an internship handed to you on a silver platter. That's just not how this program works. Now, by the way, have students landed opportunities at Google, major investment banks, major engineering firms, major marketing firms? Absolutely, happens all the time. But have they done that as a result of meeting with their mentor, taking advantage of the things that they've learned through this program? Yeah, absolutely. But if you think this is going to get handed to you on a silver platter, I think you already know by now that's just not how this program works. You have to work for the things that you get. Now, this platform can be a springboard for you to get to where you want to be. Leverage this as an opportunity to really launch your early career path. Absolutely, yes, this is something that can really do make a huge impact on you getting to where you want to be. But this is not a handout. This is not something that is just given to you. And especially in this time period that we're living in with the crazy coronavirus going on and all these other things going on where work is potentially unsure of, this program could be critical to you really setting yourself apart compared to your peers. Take advantage of it. I really think that you're going to enjoy what we have to say in this workshop this evening. Now, I really want to talk about the intentionality of feelings, because here's the thing. At the end of the day, how you make someone feel in a given moment is going to really impact how they feel about you down the line. So I want you to just take a quick moment on a piece of paper or on your phone. I want you to identify, how do you want other people to feel about you? So when you're going into that first job, that first internship, that first part-time job, how do you want your boss? How do you want your colleagues? How do you want your peers? How do you want other people to feel about you? Write it in the comment section. Write it down on a piece of paper. I want to know, how do you want other people to feel about you? Because that intentionality is so key. It is so key, because here's the thing. If you don't write this down, if you don't set out an intention for how you want other people to feel about you, they are going to perceive you in any which way that you may feel on that given day. And that could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. If you're having an off day and you're thinking to yourself like, oh man, like, I'm having a rough day, you can let that spew onto other people. It happens all the time. And people come up with excuses for it. You might say, hey, my dog died earlier today, or I just found out my grandma's got cancer, having a rough day. And don't get me wrong, there's not an excuse for having a rough day. But you've got to be able to realize that as a professional, you've got to put on multiple different hats to get yourself in the zone to make the most out of it. So no matter what's going on with your world, You can't let your personal world affect your business world. And if you do, it's going to potentially negatively impact the way that other people feel about you. But if you set an intention right now about how you want other people to feel about you, you're going to put yourself in a much better situation. If you think to yourself, I want people to think about me as dependable and reliable and someone that's always upbeat, confident, and excited when it comes to work. It doesn't matter what's going on with your outside world. Even if the worst thing could have possibly happened in your outside personal world, if you set yourself an intention right now that that's how you want other people to feel about you, when you come into work, you're going to straighten yourself up because you've already identified, I don't want people to feel sad, bad, or like that I'm a charity case because I've got other things going on in my outside world. You want other people to feel like you are a rock, that you are someone that they can go to, that you are someone that's always showing up professionally. Boom. You will get yourself into the mindset ready to be successful. Now that leads to the 3 keys that we cover in every workshop for success in this mentor program, which is strategy, story, and state. And as I just said, it doesn't matter what's going on in your outside world. It doesn't matter what the state of the world is. If you are a rock, if you are someone that physically comes into a state conducive for being successful every single time, you will be successful. I promise you that. So what I want to do right now is I want to get you into a state conducive for being successful. I want you to stand up. And I want you to shake it loose. I want you to shimmy it out. I want you to let it go. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. On the count of 3, scream 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Just let it out. Let it loose. Let it go. You're getting yourself pumping. You're getting blood flowing to your brain. You're releasing endorphins. You're getting yourself ready to be successful. The reason why that is so key is because no matter what is going on in your world, you can drive your emotions with your motions. Your motions drive your emotions, meaning that if you get out, you move, you do a power pose, you get crazy, you can get yourself in a state conducive for other people wanting to be around you. You can get yourself feeling good, even if you don't want to feel good. Even if you think to yourself, I just want to remorse for a little bit. I just want to be sad for a little bit. You can be sad on your own time, but when it comes to work time, you step your game up. And the way that you step your game up is you get your emotions and you turn them into positive emotions. I can tell you that right now. Even when you don't want to feel on your best self, your emotions can get yourself into an emotional state conducive for being successful, even if it's only for a temporary period of time. I promise you, your emotions, getting moving, getting running, getting going, getting just shaken out, will get yourself successful. And that will be a huge catalyst for you being successful on the job, standing apart from other people. Because everyone else is going to wonder, like, man, how are you able to stay upbeat, positive, just like a go-to person every single time while other people are taking sick days or just having off days? And you can tell, everyone can tell. It's because you are making an intention to be that way before you come into work every single day. It's critical. Now, the next key is your story. What's the story you tell yourself? Now, that's a big point of the intentionality. What is the story you tell yourself for why you're going to be successful? If you tell yourself a negative story like, hey, you know what, I don't deserve to be here, I'm not qualified, I'm just honestly, I don't even know why I'm in the room. If that's a story you tell yourself, that is the outcome that will be perceived by other people. But if you tell yourself a story, man, I can do this, I can make an impact, I can learn from these people, I can engage, I can be the energetic person who does what it takes, works the hardest to get to where I need to be. If you come in with that mentality, you can be successful. Now, the last key is your strategy. What are you going to do to make sure that you set yourself apart from your peers? Now, there's a few things that we talk about with our guest speaker, but there's a few things that I would love to discuss with you right now. The first one is what is focal is causal. This is popularized by the work of Dr. Robert Cialdini. Essentially, what it means is that whatever is seen is perceived, which means that it is all optics. By that, I mean, if your supervisor, if your boss, if your CEO sees you showing up early for work, working hard on projects, taking initiative, they will attribute the success of the entire intern team to you. But if they see you on your phone, on social media, doing something lazy, just doing things that are not, like spreading gossip at the water cooler, not working when you should be working, anything that could be perceived as negative, if they see that, they will perceive that just as likely as they do the hardworking stuff. So it is really critical that whatever people see about you, whoever you want to make sure that you impress, that they see the type of person that you want to portray, and that they do not see the type of person you do not want to portray. You will think to yourself, man, I wonder how does XYZ person get promoted over another person. I can tell you how. It's that they are seen doing good work while the other people are not seen doing good work. Make sure that you're seen doing good work. In fact, what I always find the most interesting about this research of Dr. Robert Cialdini is its extrapolation to other areas of life. Specifically, as you know, I don't know if any of you all are holed up right now for coronavirus and sitting inside watching television, but what he's observed in his research is that when cameras, especially in police interrogations, are facing any particular person, whether that be the police officer or the suspect, when the camera is facing the person, one particular person, a jury is much more likely to attribute negative feelings towards that person if the camera is facing them. So if the camera is facing a suspect in an interrogation, the jury is much more likely to attribute guilt on the party of the suspect than they are to think that the cop is asking leading questions, trying to get an answer that may not actually exist. However, flip it around. When the camera is facing the police officer, not the suspect, the likelihood that the jury is going to think that the cop, the police officer, is asking leading questions, trying to get an answer that may not actually be essentially the guilt of the person who's under interrogation, it essentially increases substantially more. The point I'm trying to make is that when what people see is what they perceive. So at the end of the day, if God forbid you're ever in a police interrogation situation and you notice that the camera is rolling, at the best you want to make sure that the camera is side by side equally to you both, or not facing you and facing the police officer. It's crazy how much of an impact that has on how people perceive other people. But more importantly, as it pertains to the workplace, make sure that people see you doing good work and not see you doing bad work. It's not a tit for tat type of thing. One bad deed is about 10 good deeds worth. You have to really make sure that you're not seen doing anything bad, or you are going to be on the shit list of your supervisor. And that's not a place you want to be. So the next thing that I want to talk about is this theory called the next in line theory. Essentially what this says is that when somebody is talking or about to speak, their likelihood of retaining any information before or after their speech is very low. So if you know that your supervisor is about to give a presentation, or someone that you really look up to, maybe you are about to see a keynote speaker, you're thinking to yourself, I love this keynote speaker, I love what he or she has to say, I want to go up to him or her after their speech. Bad idea. Here's why. People, when they speak, are much more likely to think about what they just said if they just finished giving a speech, or what they're about to say if they're about to give a speech. Their likelihood of retaining any new information is very minimal. So therefore, you need to give the person you're trying to make a positive impression to a leeway period before you bring up new information to them, because that will increase the likelihood that your message is actually going to resonate in their mind. But if you come up to them right before a speech or right after a speech that they just gave or are about to give, their likelihood of remembering what you said, very low. So just something to keep in mind. This also applies to a boss who's giving a speech, any colleague that's giving a speech, anybody who's about to speak publicly for anything. Make sure you don't talk to them immediately before or afterwards, because they're not going to remember what you said. So the last thing that I want to touch on is this concept called matching and mirroring. This is a great key for building rapport in the workplace, especially for someone who's got negative body language. So I think we've touched on this before in the past, but you should not have your arms crossed when you're at the workplace. It conveys that you're closed off and that you're not open to learning new information. But there's a lot of people that have bad body language in the workplace. There's going to be a lot of people that will cross their arms to you. Can you cross back? The answer is yes. And I know this might sound crazy, but people feel a subconscious connection to others that they are similar to. And this can be in your mannerisms and your speed of speech. Not your dialect of speech, but your speed of speech. So if somebody has a very thick Southern accent and you try to emulate that Southern accent, but you don't actually have a Southern accent, they're going to sniff that out immediately. It's going to be perceived as inauthentic. But if someone's talking really quickly and you're saying, I'm going to work on that, boss, I'm going to make sure I get that done, I'm going to work on it right away, they're going to think to themselves like, man, here's a sense of urgency, someone who's really with it. That's awesome. But instead, if you respond by saying, yeah, boss, I will get to it, and I will make sure that I get those assignments complete, they're going to be thinking to themselves, what the heck is wrong with this kid? Like, what, does he not like get it? The sense of urgency? It's crazy how your speed of speech is actually perceived so similar together. So if you notice that someone talks really quickly or really slowly, following their speed of speech, matching and mirroring their speed of speech, can actually help you build rapport with them. The other key is other body language. So like I said, crossing your arms. If someone's playing with their chin, you can play with your chin. Don't try to be overly obvious about it, but you can do it subtly. So if someone's playing with their ear, you can play with your ear. And I know it may sound crazy, but you can try this with a friend who's never heard this before. Go up to them, see if they've got any mannerisms. Maybe they're using their hands like this a lot. Emulate those hand gestures, and then all of a sudden introduce a new gesture. All of a sudden, maybe start playing with your nose. It could be any gesture, honestly. Start playing with your nose. Do it. First, emulate their hand gestures for about 5 minutes. Then introduce a new gesture. Watch what happens. They're going to start playing with their nose. They're going to start emulating the new gesture that you have now introduced. It's crazy. It's fascinating how it works, but it builds rapport between other people in the work environment. I think those are some really critical tips for you to know. The last thing that I want to leave you with is the 30 and 90-day rule. The 30-day rule is for an internship. When you first get into an internship, this is, by the way, this was, by the way, a Fortune 500 CEO taught me this tip, and that was when you first go into an internship, meet with your supervisor and ask him or her the question, what did the best intern you ever have do to set themselves apart? On the very first day, ask that question. They're going to tell you exactly what they want you to do to set yourself apart. For the next 30 days, go ahead and do it. Don't complain. Don't ask questions. Don't share any professional goals you've got for yourself. Just go ahead, put your head down, work hard. After 30 days, you have built credibility with this person. You can then say, hey, boss, would you be open to having a conversation? I would love to share with you some of my professional goals. Boom. That's where you share some of your professional goals. That's where you say, hey, I'm interested in connecting with people in these areas or these types of fields or these types of industries. And because you've earned credibility, they will help you get there. Why? Because you've earned that credibility. But if on day one you ask for that and you've earned no credibility, they're not going to do it. Or if they do, they're going to only do it on a light version. You're not going to get the full force of how they could possibly help connect you. That is something that's really critical. 90-day rule is the exact same thing, but for a full-time job, you get a little bit longer to really build that credibility with your supervisor and your employer. So those are key tips. The last thing I want to just really mention is really starting to help you get into a routine. I know that the best way to learn anything is to actually teach it. So what I want you to do is I want you to find somebody. This could be a friend. It could be a peer. It could be a classmate. It could be anybody. Teach them something that you learned in this program. Teach them anything you learned in this program. We know that students who tell at least, we know that students who tell at least 20 people something that they learned in this program, that their likelihood of landing the job, the internship, getting to a graduate degree increases exponentially. We know that the more people a student tells, the more likely they're able to do that. What we've identified as 20 is that magic number. And this doesn't necessarily have to be you teaching them a full seminar of anything we taught. It could be literally you bringing up casually in conversation, like, hey, I learned about this thing called matching and mirroring. It's really fascinating. Boom, that's it. That's one person. Or multiple people if you're in a group. But what we've learned is that the more people you tell, the more likely you are actually going to retain this information, the more likely you are going to actually apply it into your professional life, and the more likely you are actually to achieve the goals you have set for yourself professionally. It's crazy how it works. It's a network effect. It really does make an impact. So I want to challenge you that after this workshop, you go out, you identify a friend, you teach them something you learned in this program, and its likelihood of sticking increases exponentially. I really want to challenge you to do that. This is our final workshop. I'm really excited for what you are able to accomplish over the summer. I would really encourage you to be in the program next semester. You're going to get a new mentor. We're going to have new speakers. We're going to talk about new content. I think you're going to really enjoy it and really springboard your career into another level. I think you're going to really enjoy that. Thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful rest of this workshop. I look forward to seeing you on the next part. I'm so excited to begin our workshop this evening. Our guest is Yvonne Heath. Yvonne is amazing. Yvonne is seriously so cool. She's the founder of the I Just Showed Up movement, which is quite relevant as the topic of tonight's workshop is how do I make the most of that first job or internship? And she's essentially many times been able to show up and make the most out of that first job or internship because she just showed up. And so often when we're in our first job, when we're in our first internship, it's not just about who had the best grades or who turned in the best report. Sometimes it's just being there, being someone who's available to handle a situation as it comes up. Yvonne is a master at that. I think you're going to really enjoy what she has to say. And she talks about not only showing up physically in place, but also emotionally and mentally, and literally being all there, fully present. I think Yvonne's going to have a ton of insight for you all tonight on this workshop on how to make the most of that first job or internship. Yvonne, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much. I love that introduction. I might have to record that and use it.
Well, we're recording now, so you can absolutely use it anytime that you'd like. So we're talking about getting your foot in the door. Sorry, we're talking about making the most out of that first job or internship. So I just would love to kind of start out, just if you could share with us and the audience a little bit more about you and maybe what your first job or internship was, how you made the most out of that first opportunity.
Oh my goodness, I remember it so clearly. So I was a nurse for 27 years, and in the second half of my life, I started a whole new career, which was pretty unexpected and amazing. But in my nursing career, what I remember starting out, well, first of all, in school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I just kind of went into nursing just unclear, and I thought, well, let's give this a try. And then I sort of thought, well, wait a minute, maybe I could be a nurse. And I will never, ever forget that first job. I was terrified. If a doctor asked me a question, I'd say, I don't know, I'm just new. And I mean, it was a simple question, like, what is your name? And I don't know, I just got here. And I just remember that feeling. And nobody wants that feeling. But the truth is, of course you're going to be nervous, right? You're shiny and brand new. I would be more concerned if people weren't nervous. And I think the big thing is to do it anyways. Feel the fear and do it anyways, because there's no reason for you to be an expert when you just start, right? So obviously as I got more and more experience, I became better and better. And I mean, that's the only way to do it, right? Practice. And I remember the first time I had to give someone a needle. Poor person. I was shaking so bad. I thought, thank goodness they can't see me. Could you imagine? But now I've given thousands of needles, so it's like being, when you start out in your career, this new path, you're in kindergarten. You want to be in university right? Feeling confident in your career. You have to take those steps and you will get there. And you can have a wonderful, amazing, surprising career.
I love that. I loved your vulnerability with that story, because you're all about saying, hey, I'm giving this person a needle and I'm like shaking on the inside, and that's kind of crazy. But I'd love to ask the audience that's watching this right now, I'd love to ask anybody who's here, if you've had an internship before, did you have a nervous experience like that? Or what was the thing that made you most nervous when you were at your internship? And if you've not had an internship yet, I'd love to learn, in your mind, what makes you the most nervous about what makes you most nervous about an upcoming internship? Post in the comments section. I'd love to learn about that, because here's the reason why I don't want to ever really focus too far in on the pain points, but I do believe that misery does love company, and by that I just mean it feels relieving to know that other people have felt similar fears and have felt other similar ways. I mean, everybody that's in this program is an exceptional student. I mean, you wouldn't be in this unless you really were invested in yourself and taking your career and your life to the next level. So the fact that there are other students that feel very similarly to you as about certain fears about that first job or internship, hopefully will help you normalize it, but most importantly, can help you set a proper expectation for the work itself, which leads to my next question. Yvonne, how can I properly set expectations for my work, for my internship?
I love that question. And I think it's the same thing as if you want to be successful personally or professionally. There are a couple of things, in my opinion. First of all, that we have to accept life is unpredictable. Prepare for anything. And change is the only constant, right? And there are going to be glitches. Like I see people crossing their fingers and say, oh my gosh, I hope nothing goes wrong. I hope everything goes as planned. And that's just so cute, because life doesn't work like that. So I think it's really important to have a plan. And I had the pleasure of meeting Lloyd Robertson, and I know these people are very young, and you're in the States, aren't you? So Lloyd Robertson has had these 60-year career as an anchorman. And I met him, and I mean, he interviewed royalty, he interviewed presidents from around the world, and somebody said, "Were you ever nervous?" And his answer I loved, and I carry with me. He said, "I was never nervous. I was always well prepared." And of course, we're going to be nervous, but I think to bring that with you, say, you know what? I am well prepared. I am nervous, but I have prepared for this, and of course, taking good care of yourself so you arrive not on 2 hours of sleep, but also knowing that there will be glitches, there will be bumps, there will be things that you don't anticipate, so that you don't arrive and think, oh my goodness, I thought it was going to, A, B, and C was going to happen, and D, G, and H did. That's life. So anticipate the glitches and be well prepared. I think that's a really good starting place, don't you, Garrett?
I love that. I think that makes a ton of sense. I think anticipating the surprises and being ready for whatever can be thrown at you. But what if I'm someone who doesn't have any experience at all? This is my very first internship. I think it's kind of like when you're trying to come up with something completely fresh, it's always a basis of your understanding of the world up to that moment in time in life. So for example, you can't come up with a color that you can't think about a color that doesn't exist in the color wheel because you've seen every color in the color wheel. All I'm trying to do is say that it's difficult to be nervous about the unknown. How do I prepare myself for the unknown of what might make me nervous, or just the fact that I'm inexperienced? Are there any exercises or things that you can do to help you kind of make sure that nothing's a surprise, or that if it is, nothing's, physically, my body, my mind, everything is ready to handle that?
I love that. Well, the first thing is that everybody is very different and unique in what helps them to prepare for something, right? So I think that's the number one thing, is to check in with yourself and know what you need. So for some people, to decrease their anxiety level before they go into an unknown situation, they need to go for a 5-mile run. Well, somebody that says, oh my gosh, if I did that, I would have a heart attack. So that's not what they need. Maybe they need to meditate. Everybody has different things that help them to feel better. And it's funny because in my whole Just Showing Up movement, I say just show up for yourself first. And I encourage everybody to create a self-care toolbox. What would be in your self-care toolbox, right? What will you need to walk in to be the very best version of yourself, to be very well prepared? It's very different and unique for everyone. So I can't say to you, you need to go run, you need to go meditate, you need to check in with you and know how you can be the most grounded and centered, and take that time, right? Please don't, my gosh, please don't buy into the, oh, I'm so busy and everyone's so busy and I don't have time for self-care. Let me tell you, younger people, I'm 55, so I am a wise elder. Listen to me. Don't listen to those people. We're not doing very well with that mantra. You need to say, I need to just show up for myself first, and carve out the time, that time to prepare yourself. Get up half an hour earlier, go to bed half an hour earlier, whatever you need to be the very best you. So you need to figure out what that is for you, right?
I love it. Yeah, I love that you honed in on that, because earlier in this workshop, I was talking to the students in our one-on-one session about the 3 keys to success in this program, that being strategy, story, and state, with state, your physical state being the most important one. And so, I mean, I can tell any student personally, and I know this might sound crazy, but after lunch, I hit a food coma. I kind of hit a wall. Like my mental productivity, like I'm in a zone from like 8 a.m. till about 2, because I push my lunches back pretty late. But after 2 o'clock, I hit a wall of unproductivity. Like my brain is slower. I'm just in a food coma almost. So every day after work, I will meditate for 25 minutes. And it might sound crazy, but as the story goes about the guy who was hired to cut down trees, and this story goes like, I guess I'll share the story and it'll kind of make sense after I share it. But a guy was hired to cut down trees. On the first day, he cut down 7 trees. On the second day, he cut down 6 trees. On the third day, he cut down 5 trees. By the end of the week, he'd only cut down 1 tree. He went to his boss and he said, I don't know what's going on. I must be getting weaker. The boss says, well, when's the last time you took the time to sharpen your axe? He says, I don't have time to sharpen my axe. I'm too busy cutting down trees. The point is that if you aren't sharp, if you aren't on your peak self, on your peak game showing up, you're going to show up half of who you really are, half of your capabilities for the rest of the day. So for me, I've determined, you know what, I would rather take 25 minutes, meditate, and be on my peak game for the final, 3-4 hours of the day than not meditate and be like half running for the final 3-4 hours of my day. But I would get an extra half hour, 25 minutes of quote unquote work when I'm really not fully all there. So I guess, yeah, the point I'm trying to make is that personal self-care is so critical, but it is on a case-by-case basis. Like, that's just me. I meditate because I like meditating. But you may like doing something else. Some people do a power nap. I think it can go any way you want. So I think it's a really great point of mine.
Yes, well, and just to really bring this home for people, I was a nurse, like I said, 27 years, and I have watched story after story. I can't even count how many people broke down mentally, physically, emotionally, or spiritually because we've become this society that, that you get a hero badge for being so busy, and I don't have time for all of that. And if people do not have an hour, half an hour, whatever, for themselves, I say, what can you do to change that? Like, let's not celebrate the person that's, oh, I'm so busy, I don't even have time to change my mind. Okay, what can you do to change that? Because you will not, you are doing a disservice to yourself and the world, because the very best version of you is your greatest gift to the world. And you have to take care of yourself. That's it.
I love that. It's so crazy. I was just thinking about it. I feel, this is my personal beliefs, it's an opinion, but I don't like using the term busy. And the reason why is because it creates an artificial barrier between you and somebody else. I think sometimes we view busyness as a badge of honor, like, oh, I worked 80 hours this week, or I worked 100 hours this week, or like, I started doing this or that or whatever. And what it does is, if you tell that to somebody, like, I think you're conveying that you're working hard, but in reality, you're conveying, if let's say you're saying this to me, you're conveying to me, like, you don't have time for me. Like, I feel bad even taking up your airtime or your talk time or any of your time. So therefore, I don't want to go to you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to interact with you because you're closing me off. Because I think to myself, if you're working 80 hours a week, I don't want to add anything onto your plate. You must be too busy. Busy implies that you're spending the time that you have on this earth in a way that's not optimal. It implies that you're not spending the time that you have as optimally as you can. It makes me think of Kevin Hart interview on like Conan O'Brien or something, and Conan was like, oh, you're doing 3 movies, these TV shows, these commercials, all these other things, podcasts, whatever. You must be really busy. And Kevin had the best response. He said, no, I'm not busy. I'm spending the time that I have as optimally as I can because I can't envision spending my time any other way. And I love that because I think that is like the ultimate opposite of busyness. It is effectively utilizing the time that you have, spending it the way that you want to spend it.
I think Kevin Hart is, well, besides being hilarious, is brilliant in saying that. And here's the thing, because if I said to someone, I'm really busy right now, they would say, oh my goodness, she must be, because I don't use it all the time, right? It's not like we've just become that's all we talk about is our busyness. But my days are very, very full, but I'm doing things like this, and I'm in love with doing things like this. So that's another point that it is just so important. We have so many choices, and there's always going to be so much more that you want to do than you physically can do. There will be many times where life will demand more than you have to give. And so you really need to prioritize, and you really need to know your boundaries. Like, people will ask you, if you will say, yes, I'll work 100 hours a week. Yes, I'll do everything. Yes, I'll be the everything to everybody. You will burn out, but there will always be more and more demands. So you need to check in. And part of what my 7 takeaways that I teach is structure your life in such a way that you are self-reliant, and so are the people surrounding you. So be okay with delegating. Be okay. I just had a conversation with my son's volleyball coach, who continues to, I hope she doesn't hear this, who continues to clean her 18-year-old and 14-year-old boy's bathroom. I said, what? And she's so busy, and she's doing all these things. And I said, why are you cleaning their bathroom? She said, well, I have no idea. I always have. And I said, well, I hope the last time you did is the last time you're going to. We can't do everything for everybody, and there's too much to do than we can do. So in your new career, in your life, prioritize personally and professionally. And it's okay that you can't do everything. It's okay.
So that's a really good point. So I would love to learn, how can you properly prepare for stressful situations? How can you put yourself into a position to be better prepared for something that might be stressful as it comes to your internship or upcoming job?
Well, one of the things that I think, first of all, so we've touched on the most important is just showing up for yourself first. Self-care, emotionally, mentally, physically, it's not important, it's mandatory, right? So make that mandatory. Something else, and knowing that you can't do everything for everybody. But the other thing that I think is really important is, in any situation, I'm sorry to break it to everybody, but there will be crabby people in your workplace. That crabby guy, that crabby lady, they're everywhere. And they are unhappy with their lives, right? If you are fulfilled and you are a great self-caregiver, you're too busy loving your life to be mean to other people. So unfortunately, wherever you go, there will be people that want to support you, and there will be people that say, oh, that new person's asking too many questions. Connect with the people that will support you, right? There will be, I mean, I remember in that terrifying nursing place, I mean, some of the nurses just thought, oh, there's the new nurses, they don't know what they're doing. So, yeah, we don't know what we're doing, teach us. And they weren't willing. Whereas some would be, yes, dear, I'd love to help you. Find those people. Because it's always okay to ask questions. It's okay to be nervous. And it's okay not to have the answers when you're new. So to go into a situation and find the people and to say, you know, you've worked here for a really long time. I'm in awe of everything you're able to do. I would love to learn from you. Who doesn't love to hear that, right? Be okay with being vulnerable and saying that. And I think in those stressful times, that will diminish your stress. We don't need to go in and pretend like we've got all the answers. And I think that will alleviate stress, but also knowing that it's okay to be nervous and anxious, right? That's also part of it. And the more you learn and prepare and practice and connect with people in the workplace that will support you, the quicker you'll get to that place of more ease.
I love that. That makes a ton of sense. And so that makes me think of another question for the audience here. For the students watching this, how do you go about handling stress? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about that. How do you handle stress for yourself? Because I think one great point Yvonne has already mentioned was that it's on a case-by-case basis. So how you handle stress might not be the same way that somebody else handles stress. I'd love to learn, how do you specifically handle stress? Post in the comment section. So let's transition this a little bit to the actual job itself. One thing that I think, I'd love to learn your thoughts on is meeting people while at the office, meeting people that are outside of your cohort. So maybe I got accepted to this internship, I'm, let's say, in the finance department, or in the engineering department, or the marketing department. Is it important for me to meet other people at the company that are outside of my cohort? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's absolutely essential. So when I talk about building your village, that it takes a village to support each other, to support us when we are in good times, in bad times, in everything. And I think when you connect with people outside of your little workplace, they have a different perspective. They have a different, a viewpoint. But most importantly is to surround yourself with supportive people who not only will just show up for you, but will also be the ones that will let you know when you're not just showing up for yourself, right? Because, I mean, maybe you have your mom who, like when I started speaking, I mean, my mom, everything I did was amazing. Oh, you're so wonderful. And I said, well, that's wonderful, except that I want to get better and better. So I think it's important to have a village and to have people in all aspects. Someone, you're going to do sports with, somebody you're going to, I don't know, if you're part of a religious group, whatever you are, whatever is going to feed you, but have an entire village and different people. And the biggest thing is to not have toxic relationships, because, here's the thing, you have value and you matter, no matter, regardless of age, race, culture, sexual orientation, ability, disability, economic situation, or how great you are at your job. You have value and you matter. So more importantly than where your village comes from is how well they support you. And sometimes that's not even family members. I don't want to stir the pot too much, but you know, I mean, we all have family, we all have friends who just aren't really supportive of what we're doing. Just go out and create your village. Find people who will support you no matter what. And again, accept you the way you are, your flawed, imperfect, wonderful self. So create your village. We all need a village.
That's awesome. I love that. And I think that makes a lot of sense, especially considering that I believe it's 70% of all job opportunities go to somebody who knows somebody else at that company. So as you know, most students recognize, they're not going to spend their entire life in the job that they got their first internship at. Probably not going to happen. But that network, those people you meet could open up doors for you down the line. I think that's the beauty of LinkedIn, is that ultimately you can go on LinkedIn, you can see it. Oh, wow, Jane is working over here. No way, that's so cool. Like, how did she make that transition? Would love to catch up. And you never know, because Jane may turn around and say, hey, we're actually hiring for somebody in XYZ department. Would you be open to it? Even if it's not within your realm or field of interest, she's that recommendation that gets your foot in the door, that puts your application to the top of the stack. One of our, actually, I guess, speakers in our most previous workshop had given me a stat. It was crazy. His name's Lou Adler. He was telling me that he was at a ATS conference. ATS is the, like that computer, that machine that like looks through all the resumes and just like quickly scans whether or not they're worthy of it. And they were bragging about how like they had reviewed like 600 million something resumes, which I guess is kind of cool. But what Lou was really pointing out was that they only led to about 60,000 job offers. That's 1%. So if you think by going to like an Indeed or a big like job, you know, board website, when you think you've got a good shot at getting the job, that's 99% chance not going to happen, because only 1% of people who apply actually get the role. So I guess the point I'm making is that building that network while you're on that internship is critical, not only with your immediate cohort, but your peers outside of it, because the larger your network can be, the more relationships you can facilitate. The more you can reach out, build your tribe with people that you can reach out to. And I think you can also have like different tiers of tribes. Like there's your close-knit tribe, and I think that there's like the next layer of tribe where it's like people you got to know, you work with them, you've got a good relationship with them, but you know, it's been a few years. You haven't spoken with them in a lot of time. But if you were to reach out to them and say, hey, you know what, I'm actually looking for an opportunity in this type of industry. I've noticed that you've transitioned into this industry. I'd love to connect and learn your thoughts. They'd be happy to have a conversation with you. Absolutely. And so it's just kind of back to your whole notion of, I just showed up. You just sent it out. What do you have to lose? Like, what do they say? No, they ignore you. So, yeah, I think that's a really good point, Yvonne, about just connecting with other people and building that tribe. Very on a similar point, why is it important to treat everybody with respect and kindness at work?
Well, I think it's important to treat everybody with respect and kindness all day, every day, no matter who they are, whether it's the person who is emptying the garbage to the CEO, to everyone. Because the funny thing is that people don't even realize that for your own mental health, we talk a lot about mental health issues, and it's interesting because I actually feel like there's some things that we can help with mental health issues that we don't even think of. And one of them is being kind to everyone. Because, you know, when you're not, there's something inside of you. You don't look in the mirror at the end of the day and go, you know, I was so great today. I yelled at that guy. I kicked the cat. I was mean to so-and-so. I cut this person off. You don't look in the mirror and say, I was really awful today and I feel pretty good about that. Like, so the first reason is just because it's the right thing to do. The second is it's because it makes you feel good. When I am stressed, when I'm grieving, when I'm having a hard day, do you know what I do? I say, oh my goodness, I need to go find someone and be nice to them. And I've done that at work, and people say, did she just say she needs to go be nice to someone or pay someone a compliment? Because when you do that and make that human connection of, you find someone to say, oh, I really love the scarf you're wearing today. And they say, oh, thanks so much, I bought it. And then you have a nice exchange, right? Be kind to everyone. Make eye contact. Say hello. Just be that person that is really friendly. And that's the ripple that you know, you're nice to someone who hasn't had anyone else be nice to them that day, there's a wonderful ripple. I actually shared a story in my book of when we were driving through a construction site, and it was dusty, and I saw this man standing there with his sign, you know, go, don't go, whatever it said, or stop, go. And he just looked weathered and worn, and he was older. And I said to my son, who was just little, and I said, you know, everyone looks very cranky because they're going through this construction site and everyone looks mean. So let's say something nice to that man. And my son rolled down the window and he said, thanks for your help. Have a really great day. And a big smile. And that man just stood there and he smiled and he's like, thanks, buddy, you too. And he watched us drive away. And you know what? That was years ago. I still remember that story fondly. So those are the stories that you can collect for yourself, and it kind of fills your own bucket. So those days that are hard or whatever, you know, you just kind of say, you know, I'm a nice person, I've been nice to people, I do my best, and carry that with you. And I think that's a really important thing. And I just got really passionate about talking about filling buckets and random acts of kindness and being kind to people. And I forget what the question was, Garrett. But yes, we should be kind to everybody all the time.
Yeah, and I think that it even applies. I personally have seen this where it's so funny. I believe the greatest indicator of a lot of times, both on a tier level of like your actual status within a company, so like your title, or financial, like in terms of the greatest correlation to like title or financial raises is from people switching jobs. Like more often than not, if you stay at the same company for your whole life, they're going to promote you and raise your salary at a much slower pace than had you change jobs. It's just what the studies and the data indicates. So what you'll often see is you'll sometimes see people who were on that ground level, that were that intern at that company that one time, and then they went off to some other company or they started their own company and they built out something great. And they're going to remember who was kind to them. I mean, this is it. Like if you were just like a dick, or you just kind of like didn't talk to somebody, like they're gonna remember that. Like they're like you shut them out. You didn't give them the time of day. Like, you know, people don't actually burn bridges, but they definitely don't forget. And if you can be nice to someone, you might as well, because you have no idea where that relationship's going to go. And that kind of leads to the flip side of that question of, is it important to try to impress your boss and your supervisor at work?
I think it's important to just be as opposed to like the word impress, as long as it's as sincere, you know, not like you're just doing something to impress them. I think that it is going above and beyond, because here's one of the things is that most of things in life, the effort that you anticipate to get somewhere or to change jobs or to have a higher position, it's going to require a lot more than you anticipate. So I always say, give your absolute 150%. Just make that, no matter what you're doing, right? No matter what you're doing. And just by virtue of being the nicest person you know, or trying your very best, or going above and beyond, I love giving that extra. Your boss is just going to notice. And my son Tyler actually just did that. He's doing a real estate thing out in British Columbia, and they were going to show a house, and it had snowed. So he just called his boss and said, "Hey, I'm going to go shovel the driveway because I know you're showing the house today." And they went, "Oh my goodness, yeah, thanks so much." Didn't even think of it. He didn't ask for extra pay. He didn't ask. He just did, right, above and beyond. I think those when you have that mentality of, I just love to give a little bit more just because I want to. I love to be the best person that I can be and the nicest to everyone. Your boss is going to notice. They're going to notice.
That's a good point. Now, I love that story. So I was just about to say, I will disagree with you on a little part, but that story really emphasizes the key thing. Now, your son could have just shoveled the driveway and said nothing, but he called the manager, the boss, and said, "Hey, I'm going to go shovel the driveway because I know that we're going to do that today." And from the work of Dr. Robert Cialdini, in terms of what his research is on, in terms of what is focal is causal, that would make a ton of sense. So I got really into Dr. Robert Cialdini a couple of years ago. He wrote this book called Persuasion, and one of the points he makes in the book is this concept called what is focal is causal. And by that, it means that it's all about the optics. What people see is what they perceive. And so if they perceive you, if they see you going above and beyond and doing extra work, like shoveling the driveway while we're about to do a showing of the house, that will make me feel like you are someone that is driven by success. But had your son just shoveled the driveway and just kind of been like a wallflower and been like, I guess some random good Samaritan just shoveled the driveway and didn't take credit for it, your boss wouldn't have, his boss wouldn't have known, and he wouldn't have given him the credit for it. And so I guess the point I'm making is that just like on that topic of research, when it comes to how to make the most out of that first job or internship, you should go above and beyond because it is the right thing to do. But you should not just be a wallflower and just kind of say like, oh, it just happened by happenstance. Take credit for it. If you did it, go ahead and say, hey, you know what? I did this thing. Is that all right? Make sure that they see it. If you show up early to work, 30 minutes early, drop by the CEO's office and say, hey, good morning. How are you, CEO? Whatever. See how she's doing for the day. If you want to, do things that make you be seen doing good things. And especially on the flip side, don't be seen doing things that are bad. Don't be on Facebook. Don't be on Instagram. Don't be on Twitter. Don't be on social media on your phone or doing anything on your phone for that matter. Like, phones are the ultimate kiss of death in terms of perceived productivity. I don't care what you're doing on your phone. I don't care if it's work related. You can say, hey, I'm booking the hotel for the upcoming conference that we're going to on my phone. Don't do it. Don't be seen doing it. Do it on a computer. It's just that we have such a negative stigma about seeing people on their phones. And so if I see you doing that, I'm going to perceive you as lazy. I don't care what you're doing. No matter, you can't tell me anything, like good, bad, or otherwise. If you're on your phone, if I'm your supervisor, I'm instantly thinking it's bad, no matter what.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I have been speaking, I have been in workshops, and yeah, people are sitting there on their phone, and you just feel like they don't value your time. It just doesn't matter. Are you on your phone right now, Garrett? I saw you looking down. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, no, I'm just looking at my notes.
I'm kidding. But it just feels disrespectful, actually, and it feels like you are not being productive. So I think that's a really important point, especially in this generation of I can't leave home without my phone. I think that's a really valuable point you shared.
So true. Yeah. So yeah, sorry. When I'm looking down, I got my meeting notes and I've got all my questions written out. So I'm just looking at some of the next points that I want to bring up. But that it kind of leads to a transition a little bit in terms of failure. I think that as students, we have this big fear of failure of, well, what if this doesn't work out right? Or I guess fearing the worst. I guess one, what is failure to you, Yvonne? And two, how can I help myself better manage failure?
I love that question because I think my number one answer, I thought about that for a bit, and I think the number one thing that I would say failure is the inability to accept failure as part of this journey. Because we will fail. We will fail our way to success. We will do something, we will do it wrong, we will make mistakes, we will be defeated. That is life. That is a part of this journey, and people are terrified to fail. But there's no other way to get better at things. I mean, practice, yes, but we will fail. And I think that whole resilience thing, it's kind of resilience and empowerment they've become buzzwords. But I think that we need to be more resilient, saying, yep, I did that wrong. Yep, I failed. Wow, that was awful. When I became a speaker, I was terrified. I never once thought I would ever be a speaker. I was terrified to public speak. So, I mean, I look back at my first presentations. Oh, they were awful. So people would say I failed, but no, I just said, no, okay. You brush yourself off. And I think with failure and that resilience, right, you can become more resilient. That's not something you're just born with. So that truly is the good news. You can become more resilient and more empowered. And that's something to practice because failure is a part of this journey. And if you see it as learning opportunities, like, yeah, I really failed. How can I do it differently next time? They are opportunities to do it better next time. That's just a part of this journey.
I love that. And I love that point. I think almost to add to that, I think
onto like another tangential point of, the question is, well, what can I do to try to figure out what I want to do with my life, or how can I leverage my internship to better figure out what I want to do professionally? I think it comes from failure. I mean, I think it comes from trying new things, being willing to try new things, being willing to fall flat on your face, and being willing to say, get up and say, you know what, I learned from that. I didn't like doing that. I think so often as students, we're afraid of failure, so we try to do as few things as possible that are outside of our realm of comfort, so for fear of essentially saying or admitting that we failed. But I mean, as hopefully all the students have seen, because in our very first workshop, I shared my story of being a former drug dealer who got caught and, ultimately opening up and being vulnerable. People are attracted to those that are vulnerable. So I think, honestly, one of the best tactics that you can do to build rapport with somebody else at work, or just to overcome failure, or just figure out what you want to do in life, is to, one, try new things, but two, be cool with your failures and actually be open up, share them, like almost cherish them, use them as a thing that you brag about. People don't care that you got this internship or that you got this XYZ salary. Like, that just makes you look, like someone, like a braggart, like someone who's very self-involved. But if you're bragging about, hey, here's a time that I totally fell on my face, and this is what I learned from it, and this is what I'm working towards. You make yourself relatable. People want to open up to those people. They want to connect to those types of people. It's crazy how that works. Even though we feel so guarded about our failures, you shouldn't open up about them. What do you think about that, Yvonne?
Oh my gosh, that is just so right on. I'm like a self-help junkie, and I love reading people's true life stories, and you don't ever get inspired by this story. I mean, if this happens for someone, that's great, but I went to school, I got all 90s, I got my dream job, I married my soulmate, and I lived happily ever after. Are you inspired by that? Like, absolutely not. Like, it's through being in the messiness and making mistakes and finding a new path and failing and brushing yourself off, and that resilience of getting back. I mean, oh my gosh, I have a list of failures 1,000 miles long. I mean, I've been divorced. My son went down a very dangerous road of drugs and addiction. I thought I was, being this wonderful mom. I mean, all kinds of things have happened in my life. It's not about those failures. It's about that bounce back. It's like, okay, now what? And I think another really key are those failures will be your indicator of, maybe I thought I was I went to school to be a social worker, and I went in and I was like, this is not me. And I made the old phone call to mom and dad a month in. Hey, I know you just moved me to university and it cost a lot of money and I'm out. And, I went back home. I failed, and I have failed my way to success. And the other really big point is, I think when those failures guide you to what your passion and purpose is, right? Like, your passion and purpose, and you just keep moving in that direction. Like, oh, I really love doing this. And you may change careers several times in your life. I think that's the other big pressure that young people really need to take off of the table. You don't need to find your career right now for the next 80 years of your life. I mean, you might have the career, like your internship, whatever, you may have it for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and you meet someone and realize, oh, this person loves your attitude. They see the way you're friendly and kind and you're hardworking and you go above and beyond, and they invite you to go work over here. So you go, you don't know what other doors will be open. So don't be afraid. That is life. That whole change is the only constant. Life is unpredictable, and failure, there are opportunities to learn something new.
I love that. I want to take a quick moment to ask the audience a question here, because I think one of the really most powerful and most impactful things that you shared during this workshop was about kindness and the importance of it, and how you can leverage kindness to more or less recharge yourself and rejuvenate yourself. So I want to ask the students in the audience, I want to ask you all, when is the last time that you just intentionally were kind to somebody else? What did you do? When was it? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about that story and how it made you feel. Share with us. I love to learn about that, because I think those are powerful stories. I think that there's a ton of value in just learning about other people's acts of kindness. I love to learn about that. So Yvonne, one other question, one final question I want to ask you, just about the topic of just, I don't know, being professionally engaged and continuing to grow in my field, in my area of interest, is you were a nurse for 20-something years, and then you changed. What motivates you to continue wanting to learn and grow in this field? And I guess really, what helped you realize that nursing was no longer it anymore? And how did you realize this new path was it for you? What gave you the confidence to feel like, I can do this? And now what continues to drive you to and motivate you to continue learning more?
When I first, I went in totally naive and had no idea what I was going to be doing. So my nursing career was amazing in many ways, and I worked in the United States, in Canada, 10 different hospitals. There was always just something, right? Something in the back of my mind that said, I don't know, there's something kind of nattering at me. I don't even know what it is. And what I realized was that we're a society that is really ill prepared for grief, life's challenges and transitions, right? We're reactive. We react to it. We're not proactive. And I realized that I was suffering personally and professionally in my own career. So I just started really checking in with myself and what makes me happy and what do I want to do. And I read Jack Canfield's Success Principles, how to try to find, why I was unsatisfied. And I think that's also a key. When you feel unsatisfied, when there's an inner voice saying something, listen to it, right? So there was something that said you need to do something different. So I just started working on myself. And so, here's the life-changing moment I had. There was a pop-up on Facebook that said how to write a best-selling book. And I just looked at that, and it was like I blew back in the chair, like, oh my gosh, that's it. So if you have those moments where you just you see something, you hear something, somebody says something, and it just makes your heart race. And I was terrified, but I was excited. And my husband was terrified. I don't even know if he was excited because he didn't want me to leave my nursing career because I didn't even write. But I knew I had something to say, right? So when you start moving in the direction of passion and purpose, and I was like, I had no idea. I mean, now I have a TV show, a radio show, I've done a TED Talk, and I have an online program. That's hilarious. If you would have told me that 6 years ago, when I was a chemotherapy nurse working in a clinic, I would have said, oh, no, I'm sorry, you have me confused with someone else. And, we've sold 6,000 books. So, but I was excited, right? And I think that's just such a really great gauge of being able to say, you know what, I like this, or I'm not really happy with what I'm doing. What makes you excited? And figure out how you can make a career out of it. Because you can be the greatest dog walker in the world. And if I could, one quick story with Rick Tamlin, who talks about the bigger game. He was trying to help someone who had a corporate job, and he loved, he made money, but he was unhappy, unsatisfied. He said, you know what I love to do? I love to decorate for Christmas. And he was almost embarrassed saying it, right? Because it's like, I'm a corporate guy. That's what I love to do. Well, guess what? He became Dr. Christmas, decorator to the stars, and now is famous in that. So I think when you start a career and say, you know what, I've done this for 5 years, 10 years, there's something else, that inner voice doing something, don't ignore it. Even if it doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense for me to write a book. I didn't even journal. But just listen and let passion and purpose be your guide.
I love that. What do they say? 90% of all jobs that will exist in 10 years don't exist today, or something like that. So I think that's very poignant and very relevant. I love that. Almost just lean in. Just lean into whatever is calling and pulling at you, because it could be where you end up. Where you were meant to end up. So I think it's a really good point of mine. So I'd love to finish up this workshop. How can our audience find you? How can our audience connect with you, Yvonne?
So my goal is to create a community, or we've created a community. My website's loveyourlifetodeath.com, and that's the name of my book. In there you will find, we have a Facebook page, and the I Just Showed Up movement. And that's something that is really important to me, because I wear this bracelet, even if I have a gown on at a gala, I have my hashtag I Just Showed Up. So I Just Showed Up teaches people how to just show up for themselves and others so they are empowered and resilient when grief arrives. And that, I think, is truly going to create social change where people, you know, when we talk about these mental health issues, it's because we are reactive to life's challenges instead of proactive. I want us to be proactive. So I am here to connect, to be a part of people's journeys. I don't have all the answers, but I'm a really good crier and hugger, and I'm messy. And I mean, if anyone wants to reach out, they can just do so through the website, loveyourlifetodeath.com. And if they want to, I'd be happy to send them an I Just Showed Up bracelet, which comes with a little card, which reminds them to just show up for themselves first and just show up for others. And they should watch my TED Talk. Ha!
That's awesome. Well, Yvonne, that's amazing. You're amazing. This workshop has been fantastic. I think the students really enjoyed what you had to say. I know I enjoyed what you had to say. I am so excited, so grateful that you could be here. And by the way, students, I'm so grateful that you all could be here this evening. Thanks for taking the time to watch these workshops. This has been excellent. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye for now.